welcome to this very special reflection episode of Season 2 of Adventure Unfiltered. Well, I can't quite believe we've reached the end of another season, and this one has felt big, beautiful and transformative. When I sat on the shore in Cullen on the Moray coast and recorded my very first conversation for Season 1, I had absolutely no idea what this little spark of an idea would become. I didn't know if anyone would actually listen. I didn't know how it would land. I just knew I wanted to tell real stories of adventure, raw ones, unpolished ones, and human ones. So Season 1 will always have a really special place in my heart. It was the season of saying yes before I felt ready, of leaning in, of learning in real time. And as I reflect on Season 1, it's taught me so much about adventure, life, and podcasting itself, especially when speaking with my guests. How to listen, how to hold space for them, and how to shape a story. Season 2 built upon that foundation in a way I genuinely didn't see coming. It felt more grounded, more intentional, and more expansive. The conversations went deeper, the emotions hit harder, and the themes evolved. We didn't just explore adventure, we explored identity, responsibility, resilience, belonging, and connection. And through that, something else began to grow too, a real Adventure Unfiltered community. Not just listeners, people, a little corner of the world gathering around stories that matter. And somewhere in that growth, I realised something really powerful. This podcast isn't just a creative project, it's the dream I finally found the courage to chase. This season was full of contrasts. Fast and slow, fire and calm, mountains and rivers, youth and age, joy and challenge. We looked at how adventure changes as life changes, how we find clarity in the outdoors when life gets messy, how the wild shapes us, holds us, and reminds us who we are. And through every episode, one idea kept rising to the surface in Season 2. Adventure isn't separate from life. I want to begin with the episode that set a beautiful tone for this season, my conversation with Stevie Boyle, the co-founder of Ocean Vertical. Stevie brought a sense of purpose and clarity that stayed with me long after we recorded. He spoke about the outdoors not just as somewhere to play, but somewhere to grow, learn, rewild and reconnect. His passion for outdoor education and giving young people access to wild places felt like a reminder of what adventure is really for. He taught me that leadership in the outdoors isn't about bravado or ego, it's about ethics, responsibility, and heart. So here's my favourite clips from my conversation with Stevie Boyle in his episode called Paddleboards, Peaks, and Wild Ethics.
You know, the whole thing about trawling in marine protected areas, if more people knew how bad that was because of a connection to the ocean or these places, that wouldn't have been put through as quickly as it did. It just kind of like, there was a large consultation, but really there was no kickback from the public about trawling in marine protected environments, because unfortunately a lot of people don't have that connection to the ocean. So we're trying to do that, and then also the equipment we're wearing, we want to make as little impact as possible, and then also the people who are making those things. So it's this, adventure has like this ecosystem around it that we try and acknowledge as much as we can and make good choices, or as good choices as possible when we're going out or consuming products or buying stuff. So that's really why we call Ocean Vertical like an ethical adventure company. So we're trying to do all those things, which is hard sometimes, but then it steers our decision making. So sometimes it feels quite easy to do it as well. Chasing logbook days has put me probably in the highest places of risk that I've probably ever been in. So pushing your limits, pushing boundaries. And one of them was in winter. I was definitely in my early 20s. I was probably in between getting my summer mountain leader assessment and exploring winter. I went snowholing on my own. So
that was clever.
automatically you're like, oh, okay. And I'm kind of just trying to justify all these things I'm about to say.
I know, I'm just waiting on it. You're building up to it, Stevie.
Anyway, I dug myself into a snow hole.
Literally.
Dug myself in, and I had to dig myself out of that snow hole like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, gosh.
I started walking using this broken compass, and after a fairly significant amount of time, I realized that the wind direction had changed. And obviously, with experience, I was like, that doesn't make any sense that the wind direction has changed.
Yeah, you realise it was you that had changed direction.
I put a picture on social media, and it had been recycling day in Dunbar, and it was in Dunbar Harbour. And of course, there had loads of plastic bottles had gone into the harbour. And they were like, that's terrible, we should chat about this. So we chatted and things like that. And I was like, but that's not that's the superficial. So the plastic bottles in the sea is a real issue. Sort of ghost fishing nets is a real issue, and we can definitely do things about that. And there's people locally, and Ocean Vertical itself have gone out to try and help local fishermen get their kit back out of the sea and off beaches and all that kind of stuff. And I do see that as a big part of rewilding. But I think the stuff that was in the bottles, bleach, for example, cleaners, the things that we use in our showers and down our toilets is also a big issue in terms of ocean health. Talking about that and trying to do things to help organisations that's a big part of is also really important.
My next guest on season 2 of Adventure Unfiltered was Emy McLeod. So one of the things that bonded us instantly was our shared love of the Yukon. In this episode, we talk about our experiences paddling the canoes 750 kilometres of the Yukon River from Whitehorse to Dawson City. We did this a year apart, but somehow telling the same story of connection, solitude, and that unmistakable magic. My favourite moment, which you'll hear in this clip, is when we read a passage from Robert Service's The Spell of the Yukon. It's a poem that captures the pool of wild places so perfectly, and every time I hear it, it still gives me goosebumps. In this episode, where rivers run and oceans call, Emy brings together paddleboarding, movement, and a deeply ethical approach to nature. She reminds us that the outdoors isn't a resource to take from, but a relationship to honour. Her understanding of wild places is intuitive, respectful, and fiercely honest. Emy embodies the idea that adventure should be sustainable, mindful, and most importantly, rooted in care. So here's my favourite clips from my conversation with Emy McLeod in her episode Where Rivers Run and Oceans Call.
And it's again these moments that you're like, this is what life is. We're sitting around, we're talking, and there's a moose over there. And it's the conversations around campfire, around dinner. It's that people interaction, and it's the moments in time. It's that slowing down, and then you pack everything back into a boat and journey downstream. The river, it braids every little kind of braid. Like, which channel do you take? And it's kind of, I guess you could kind of put that into life as which channel do you take and where are you going to end up? I think being involved in the She Paddles movement and being kind of like an ambassador for female paddling, it kind of shows that you can paddle a boat that's just as good as a guy. But no, I think it's important definitely for inspiring younger generations to grow up and showing actually these opportunities are for everyone. I do kind of think back and you kind of look to see what was coming out in the media, in print or online, and there was a lot of kind of male-dominated sports, and it's good to see that there's now a major increase, a major shift in females, especially in paddling as well. And I think it's just important to have that representation.
I'm going to read a couple of verses from it because it just really sums up how the Yukon makes you feel. You just get it when you read these words, like it just pulls something out of you. So I'll start with the first verse. So it says, I wanted the gold and I sought it. I scrambled and mucked like a slave. Was it famine or scurvy? I fought it. I hurtled my youth into a grave. I wanted the gold and I got it, came out with a fortune last fall, yet somehow life's not what I thought it, and somehow the gold isn't all. Oh, here I go.
Got it.
It's the second verse. No, there's this land, have you seen it? The cussedest land that I know, from the big dizzy mountains that screen it, to the deep death-like valleys below. Some say God was tired when he made it. Some say it's a fine land to shun. Maybe, but there's some as would trade it for no land on earth, and I'm one. And then it talks about what it's like in the winter and what it's like in the summer. And then the last verse is the one that always gets me and Emy when we read it. So it goes, there's gold and it's haunting and haunting. It's luring me on as of old. Yet it isn't the gold that I'm wanting so much as just finding the gold. It's the great big broad land way up yonder. I'm going to have to cut this bit. Here I go.
No.
It's the great big broad land way up yonder. It's the forest where silence has lease. It's the beauty that thrills me with wonder. It's the stillness that fills me with peace.
I think being part of big expeditions or kind of going out on paddling adventures and being out in the remote, it completely fuels my passion. I absolutely love what I do. They push you physically, they push you mentally. It can be demanding. You've got to work together as a team. But equally, if you do solo adventures, you're literally depending on yourself and your expertise. But it leaves you with unforgettable memories, and most of the time you might make new friends along the way. And it's in those moments that you're far from the noise of everyday life. That's when I feel most alive and connected with people and connected with nature, is being out there and remembering who I am and what it means to me, and being in the wild. And there's no words to describe it. And I think that's what's amazing about your tagline, is that be in the wild and be you.
Thank you, Emy, for holding that space for me as well, and it was so lovely to reminisce about the Yukon River. My next guest on Adventure Unfiltered Season 2 was Myrtle Simpson, and her episode is called Across Ice, Mountains and Time. Myrtle Simpson, what an absolute honour. Myrtle has so much spark and timelessness, even at 95. Her clarity, warmth, and the way she speaks about the mountains as companions rather than conquests is absolutely incredible. Myrtle represents perspective earned through a lifetime of moving forward with freedom and curiosity. She is a pioneer of Scottish skiing, the first woman to ski across Greenland, a Polar Medal recipient, but she never once centres achievement. Her life is a reminder that adventure isn't a season of youth. It's something that evolves with you. So here are my favourite clips from my conversation with Myrtle Simpson in her episode Across Ice, Mountains and Time. Myrtle, what's your first memory of the mountains and snow?
My absolute memory is on my father's back. He was in the army, and in India, the British Army sort of ran India. It was the time of the Raj, as people talk about. So in the summertime, we all went up to the mountains, all the Brits, all the politicians, and most British families always had nannies, and everybody had a nanny, and you called them your ayah. And the mothers had a nice time going off skiing or whatever, and the ayahs weren't supposed to take the children away off the British Army area, but of course they took them home. So we all spoke local speak, and I used to sing Indian songs to my kids.
Oh,
and
really?
Still do that. Aya nachi bottle kana. Well, we brought skiing to this part of the world. If there was a Brit that could ski well, they had money and they were English, Scots living in England, and they went abroad, of course. Nobody had a place in Scotland to go and ski. You had to go to the Alps. Britain had some very fine skiers, but they weren't known within Scotland so much. When we had children, we thought, this is daft. Why can't we ski in Scotland? We've come to live in the area. There's magic skiing in the winter. Me, for instance, we take our children abroad and put them in the local race when you saw people. And the British kids were useless. They never won anything. We thought, this is stupid. Our kids are as good as them. Why can't they ski any better? So let's have a ski area. We lived in Glasgow when I first married and had a baby, the first baby. And there I was with my flipping baby, and I was waving the friends away for the weekend. And I thought, wait a minute, what's wrong with us doing that? And I then got very cross letters in both the Scotsman and the Glasgow Herald particularly. Who is this woman? How can she call herself a nice mother? Taking her children to Glencoe, where it's cold and windy and wet, and tents aren't nearly good enough and so on. Well, of course, that was all absolutely bonkers. There's nothing to stop you having a good tent in Scotland. Plenty of shops will sell you one.
My next guest on Adventure Unfiltered Season 2 was Emma Norton. Now, this one I know will resonate deeply with so many of you. From the moment I met Emma, she radiated warmth, humour, and this grounded, effortless strength, a real spark that fills the room. Her story on Adventure Unfiltered is not about elite skiing or competition or even business ownership. It's about being grounded, about reconnecting with the outdoors, not when life is easy, but when it becomes busy, pressured, or uncertain. In Emma's episode, she talks about how injury forced her to pause, reset, and rediscover her joy. How being grounded isn't about slowing down, but staying connected to what matters. She teaches people not just to go off-road, but to notice where they are in themselves and their surroundings. Emma's episode reminded me that adventure isn't found in extremes. It's found in presence, balance, and joy. So here's my favourite clips from my conversation with Emma Norton in her episode Off-Piste, Off-Road and On Fire. What was it like competing for Team GB on the ski circuit?
Pretty intense for such a young age. Like, I was really young. I think being away from home for that whole time, Christmases with family, birthdays, everything like that was all just put to the side. Travelling around in vans, chasing races was, I think of it now, I think it's absolute madness. But at the time, I was so in it and I involved in it and it was my passion. I loved it, and being part of that ski circuit, you were with your pals skiing around. Like, it was your best friends, and still some of my best friends are part of that team. Like, you create these bonds with these people. I think of it now, I instantly talk about like the regret of a lot of it, of not being like aware of where I was. And I was just traveling, going from A to B as fast as I could, and then jumping in a van to go to the next resort. And I talk about like some of the circuit they do now. I don't even know if I've skied there. I can't even remember it. But I think if I stood at the top of the start gate, I'd be like, oh, I've been here before. It feels like a lifetime ago.
What age were you?
So I was like 16, 17.
Wow. Are you proud of yourself?
Oh, majorly. I say majorly. I am proud of myself. I tell my little boy every day I'm proud of him, because you should be told that everyone is proud of what you do, but you don't hear it. And I feel like that's maybe a Scottish thing. We're like, oh, it's just what we do. We're like, oh, blasé. Like, don't talk. Yeah, breezy, exactly. There's this like, I don't know what it is. We don't want to hear compliments, and we don't really want anyone to talk about us like that. But we should, but we're not good at taking it.
We're terrible.
We're awful.
And as women, we're even worse.
Yeah.
Imagine being a Scottish woman.
I know.
You've got kind of that layer of not being able to want to hear a compliment, and then being a woman, you don't know how to take a compliment. But it's true, like you don't. And it's uncomfortable even talking about it. One thing you always carry in your adventure pack or your backpack that people wouldn't expect.
I don't think I have anything exciting in my rucksack.
I was going to say you're the coolest person that I know, but I might take it back.
But then probably what I think is normal is probably not normal.
I know. So in Lorna's rucksack there is usually layers, food, waterproof. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, but that's nothing. You've
it's
asked
not
what's
anything new.
exciting, what's new, what's...
Nothing. We're boring. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I don't take anything that I don't really want to carry the whole way about.
The most exciting thing that I ever have in my bag is usually a fusty banana from the last time.
Something like a soggy cereal bar or something. You're like, I was like, well, if I'm really desperate.
See, that's it, but it's always a black banana for me. Like, always find
I can't do it.
Squishy banana.
Do you need a banana guard?
What's a banana guard?
Oh, guess that's maybe that's my exciting thing. It's a plastic banana guard. Have you never seen them? No. Currently Googling.
So actually, your answer to one thing you always carry in your adventure pack that people wouldn't expect.
It's a banana guard because I can't deal with squishy banana. It's the goo.
What a fun conversation that was to record with Emma. And actually, a few days after we had recorded this episode, I received a package in the post. And yes, you've guessed it, I now have my very own banana guard. So thank you, Emma Norton. No more squishy bananas in my pack. My final guest on Adventure Unfiltered Season 2 was Cameron McNeish. And if you've spent any time in the hills in Scotland, chances are you've come across Cameron's voice in one way or another. Through his writing, his broadcasting, his books, and decades spent walking, climbing, and storytelling about wild places, Cameron has quietly shaped how generations of people understand Scotland's landscapes, and perhaps more importantly, how we understand our relationship with them. But what struck me the most about our conversation wasn't the achievements or the long list of adventures. It was Cameron's gentleness and thoughtfulness, and the deep sense of belonging that Cameron carries with him when he talks about the hills. Throughout this episode, we spoke about a lifetime spent outdoors, from the Munros to remote corners of Scotland, and how the mountains slowly become something more than destinations. Over time, they become companions, teachers, places Cameron returns to again and again, not to conquer anything, but to simply reconnect. One of the things that stayed with me the most from this conversation was Cameron's perspective on time. When you speak to someone who has spent decades in the hills, the urgency we sometimes attach to adventure starts to soften. There's less talk of ticking things off and more talk of returning, of walking familiar paths, of noticing the changes in landscape, the light, the seasons, and perhaps the changes in ourselves too. Adventure in Cameron's world isn't about chasing the next big headline. It's about a lifelong relationship with place. And I loved hearing him talk about the idea that the hills are always there. That whatever is happening in life, the busy seasons, the uncertain seasons, the joyful seasons, the mountains remain quietly patient, waiting for us to come back. Another thread that ran through our conversation was, of course, storytelling. Cameron is a storyteller in the truest sense of the word, not just recounting routes or summits, but capturing the feeling of being outside. The small details that make time in the hills memorable, the sound of the wind across the ridge, the companionship of people you share the journey with, the quiet satisfaction of simply moving through a landscape on foot. And as we talked, it became clear that those stories are about much more than adventure. They're about gratitude, about aging, about recognizing the privilege of being able to spend a lifetime exploring wild places. There was a humility in the way Cameron spoke about it all, and I found it really grounding. Because sometimes adventure can feel so loud, it can feel really competitive, and it can feel like it needs to be bigger, further, and faster. But Cameron's perspective gently reminds us that adventure can also be slow. It can be reflective. It can be simply a walk in the hills you've loved your entire life, and that in itself is enough. I think that's why this conversation felt like such a fitting way to close the season, because at the heart of Adventure Unfiltered, it's always been a simple idea that adventure isn't defined by the scale of the journey, it's defined by the connection we feel when we step outside. And in many ways, Cameron has spent a lifetime helping people rediscover exactly that. So here are my favourite clips from my conversation with Cameron McNeish in his episode, There's Always the Hills and Always a Story.
My television director and I, we had enjoyed a trip to the Himalayas in the Langtang Valley. And while we were over there, we realised that there was a Himalayan trail which went the whole length of the Himalayas. And we felt if the Nepalese can do a trail that goes the whole length of the Himalayas, surely we can have something in Scotland that goes the whole length of Scotland. Now, we had all sorts of national trails and whatnot. And it was a fairly easy job just to link them all together. So that's what we did. We linked them together with some bits and pieces where we had to get the maps out and find routes that joined them up. But it was a fairly easy task. So we decided we'd do a television programme and we'd do this trail and call it the Scottish National Trail. I'm reminded of the words of an American conservationist and forester by the name of Aldo Leopold. And this is what he said, and I think these words are so important. He said, "We abuse land because we regard it as a commodity belonging to us. When we see land as a community to which we also belong, we may begin to use it with love and respect." So I think we have to consider these landscapes as a community to which we belong. And by that token, the rocks, the mountains, the trees, the birds, the flowers, the plants are our brothers and sisters. John Muir was very good at talking about the plants, the flowers as his brothers and sisters. And that's the way we have to look. We're part of that community. And you can't just take us out of it or take another part. We're part and parcel of that whole thing. So I think when we talk about, who we are in relation to these landscapes, we're very much part of it. We're very much in there. Farewell, you northern hills, you mountains, all goodbye. Moorlands and stony ridges, crags and peaks, goodbye. Glitterfach, farewell, Coolbeck, Scoffell, cloud-bearing Sullivan, sun-warmed rocks and the cold of Bleaklow's frozen sea, the snow and the wind and the rain of hills and mountains, days in the sun and the tempered wind and the air like wine, and you drink till you're drunk on the joy of living. Take me to some high place of heather, rock and ling, scatter my dust and ashes, feed me to the wind, so that I may be part of all you see, the air you are breathing. I'll be part of the curlew's cry and the soaring hawk, the blue milkwort and the sundew hung with diamonds. I'll be riding the gentle breeze as it blows through your hair, reminding you how we shared in the joy of living.
And that brings us to the end of this season of Adventure Unfiltered. To my guests this season, Stevie Boyle, Emy McLeod, Myrtle Simpson, Emma Norton and Cameron McNeish, thank you. Thank you for your time, thank you for your honesty, and thank you for sharing your stories so openly. Each of these conversations has been different, but every single one has reminded me why I started this podcast in the first place, to explore the human side of adventure and the powerful connection between people and the wild places that shape us. And of course, a massive thank you to you, the listeners. Whether you've been here since the very first episode or you've just discovered Adventure Unfiltered recently, thank you for being part of this growing community. Your support, your messages, and your encouragement really mean more than you probably realise. And as this reflection episode airs in March 2026, I am delighted to let you know that we're back for a third season of Adventure Unfiltered, so keep an eye out for more in the coming weeks. Producing and growing this podcast and building the Adventure Unfiltered community has brought me so much joy, and just like you, I'm incredibly excited for what comes next. So, until next time, breathe deeply, keep adventuring, and don't forget, in the wild, we remember who we are